Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in this country, in the city, in the world. Welcome to another episode of the Silk Stocking Sisters podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Teresa J. Canada. And today we have a special guest. As you know, all my guests are special, but I have a really special guest. It's my friend and colleague, Dr. Robin Gustafson. And she's going to talk about her experience as something that she went through in the northern part of the country. And I spoke to her about it. I said, you got to be on my podcast. You got to be on my podcast. And she was hesitant because I know Robin doesn't like to do a lot of talking. But because we're such great friends, she volunteered to come on and talk about her experience that she shared with me some time ago. So today, I want to say that I want to take it from the perspective of a professional point of view, first of all, and let Robin tell us a little bit about her training and background. As I said before, she's a professor at Western Connecticut State University, and she teaches in the psychology department. And one of her specialties is being a cognitive scientist. So I want you, Robin, to share with the audience what exactly is a cognitive scientist and what do you do?
Okay, thank you, Teresa. A cognitive scientist studies how the mind works in a kind of daily, routine, ordinary way. So not the mind at its most abnormal, but just in general, how does the mind work? Mm-hmm. I got a PhD in human cognition and learning from Columbia University. I studied with Carol Dweck and Janet Metcalf. Who else? A lot of
stellar people.
Amazing people.
Yes,
a lot of amazing people. What else? What was the question?
Well, basically, give the audience an idea of what exactly is a cognitive scientist and some of the things that you do as being a cognitive scientist.
So my research is primarily focused on learning of difficult things. So that means, for example, the research that I did with you on girls and women learning math in a society where, sometimes that can be really challenging for girls and women. So learning is something that the human mind can't stop doing. It's built into our nervous system. And so I think studying learning as it's happening in every ordinary moment is really important.
Well, thank you for telling the audience that I also do research, because some of them don't know that. So thank you. For those of you who didn't know, now you know, right? So anyway, and also it's important because how Robin and I met was through this particular research project we did. And, as you all know, my book, the Silk Stocking Sisters book, talks about 7 brown Black girls who experienced a part of a desegregation process in New York City schools. So as you now know, that this is not just an anomaly. This is something that I have a sincere interest in, especially with the deals with girls and women. So next then, Robin, can you tell us a little bit about, where you grew up, your schooling and your experiences, I know, in Massachusetts. Can you share some of that with the audience?
Yeah, so I grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I went to a school with really a lot of diversity. And then when I was 11, I moved to the suburbs, to Concord, Massachusetts, and started attending the public schools there. And it was not a diverse town at all. It was white, 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 and white. But at the time, this was 1970s, our school system participated in busing students from Boston out into the suburbs, Black students. And let's see. So one of the things that I think helped those students go through this, I have to imagine, pretty traumatic experience of being carted around and being used as symbols of desegregation.
And they were taking buses, like school buses, into your area, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
To attend our schools.
Okay.
And I think that one of the things that must have helped was they had a school club. I think it was called the Black Student Union.
Now, what grade was this?
This was in high school, so
Okay.
this is why I let you do the talking most of the time.
Yes, 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 I know. Because wait, like I know the story, folks, but I want to hear from Robin. So
Okay.
this is why I said you've got to be on to talk about this. So I
Okay.
really so happy that she decided because I think you need to hear her perspective and what her experience is. But it says a lot about her as a person as well. So just share a little bit of that.
Okay. So I went to a very white public school in high school, and we had Black students bust out from Boston to our suburban high school. And I think that one of the things that helped was having a club of where Black students could meet with each other and comfort each other. I mean, it can't have been easy.
Oh, tell me about it. I know. Look, that was high school, so you can imagine what happened to me when I was in elementary school.
Yeah, I
So
can only imagine.
yes, can you imagine? Right, exactly. So I'm just saying to you, it's a little different, but it's interesting. People think that I mean, like I said, one of my students back in 2018 said she didn't know that schools were segregated in the North. I was horrified, thinking, okay. So I said, let me just share this information, let people know and then people have experiences. So that's why I want to enlighten people to what's going on and what has gone on, and also eventually lead it up to where we are now. So, you sharing this, this was in the 1970's. Okay. People thinking, it was back in the 50's. I said, no, this is not something in the 50's or 30's and 40's. So
Yeah,
this is 1970's. So exactly what was what was this a club that was initiated by the Black students who were there?
I believe it was initiated by those
Okay.
students, but I didn't become aware of it until I think it was my sophomore year. The administration said they were going to close down the club. And the reasoning that they gave was school funding could only go to clubs in which everybody was welcome, and white students weren't welcome in the Black Student Union. And so they were going to close down the club.
Wow. Interesting. This was across the board, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my friend Sarah and I thought, well, we don't want it to close down. We think it's really important. So we joined the club as white students to keep it open. We didn't attend any of the meetings.
But you just became a member.
We just really wanted it to stay open.
Now, give me some feedback from your point of view. What exactly did that do? Okay. What do you think that was like?
To keep it open?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I want to know your sense of what difference did it make? Like again, Robin, explain again. Just tell me specifically. So you and your friend joined, so they wouldn't close the club.
Yes.
What was it that you thought about at that time, in that point in your life? What made you do that?
Well, I guess having a safe place has always been important to me. I'm one of those kids for whom, school was a safe place for me. In a kind of I grew up in the 1960's. There was a lot of chaos. There was a lot of things that were hard to deal with. And I found going to school to be a safe place. My friend Sarah and I just felt like the Black students being bussed out of Boston into the Concord, Massachusetts suburb, it just must have been really hard. And we felt like they should have a safe space. So I think that was the impetus. Also, we liked sticking it to the administration.
Rebellious high schoolers. That's what you call it, right? Who go figure? Robin? Rebellious? I don't think so, right? So now they know. Okay. Well, okay. Now let's take the next step. So that was something you did. So it saved the club from being closed.
Yeah.
Did that, how can what do you sense that experience such as yours made in your personal and professional life?
Well, I think it continued my concern that people have safe places. As a college professor, I work really hard to make sure that my classroom is a safe place and that my office is a safe place. I think people need to feel safe and to have important connections with people that they choose.
Good point. That's a great point to be made. That's something we can all consider as we walk around in this world, in this life. And that's one of the things why I want to share, because I think people need to hear from people directly. I mean, they can hear from me, but to hear from people directly who experience it, who sense that same way, that we need to all kind of be able to get together. So,
But being taken out of your own community and being thrust into somebody else's community in order to show on paper that we're desegregating, I just think that's a lot to ask of kids.
Well, mind you, this was high school, right?
Yes. And you were not a high school student, I know.
I was 7, 8 years old.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, okay? And people said, what? I said, yeah, I was 7 or 8 years old on the bus. This wasn't a yellow bus. It was a New York City public bus. But you got to go on the bus every morning, go 45 minutes one way and come back 45 minutes the next way, all by your lonesome self. And so, people don't think about that, how that impacts a person or child. I do research in early childhood as well, and the impact that has on the psyche of a child. Can you describe a little about that in terms of the thinking process, and what your sense about that?
I don't think I have anything for you, Teresa. I don't.
Well, I'm just saying
no.
That says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It says a lot, right? But yet, and still, we still have situations now where that sense of being is still diminished with young people.
Yeah. Okay. I guess I'll just say that when people don't feel safe, they can't act like themselves. And, from a cognitive science perspective, when you feel overwhelmed, and it has to have been an overwhelming experience, when you feel overwhelmed, your hippocampus starts to close down and you stop being able to process new information. You stop being able to take advantage of what your nervous system is really designed for, which is connecting, acting, being in the world. You start to close down and close in on yourself when you are thrown into an overwhelming situation.
So you can imagine what the reaction can be. What are some of the reactions that can take place when a child, not in high school, younger child is in a situation like that? What are your thoughts, and which is professional assessment of what a child can go through and what some of the ramifications could be?
I think just what I just said, which is if life is too overwhelming, you start to shut down.
Okay. So that's a lot about the schooling. So if you're in a setting in a school where that's not being considered,
yeah,
what happens to a child? They don't.
So, especially coming from feeling, for me, like school was my safe place. I can't imagine what it would be like if school wasn't my safe, wasn't a safe place for me.
So it makes a difference, right? Okay. And I think for some of the children, but the many children who were part of the desegregation process or integration process, they weren't going to safe spaces. I mean, I talked about, the teachers, didn't want really some of them didn't want us there in the school. So it was, and this is from early on. So you can imagine the kinds of reactions that people have. Some people were able to get through it. Some people weren't able to get through it. But you think about the long-term impact of individuals who don't necessarily have a way to, how should I say, someone to explain to them what the process is. That's the other piece. Because think about this. Parents were willing to sacrifice their children to go through these experiences. And the classes they were going to weren't necessarily, quote unquote, as you say, safe spaces.
And I hope this isn't upsetting, but I feel like the project was really good for the white students, because part of education is learning what things are like from other people's perspective. And the white students were not traumatized. The white students were not in a strange place. Oh, well, high school is strange for everybody, but I think for the white students, it just helped having a different perspective, having people who had grown up with a different experience. So I think
sharing that experience.
So I think it was good for the white students. I'm not sure it was at all good for the Black students, but
interesting point. I'm glad you said that. That's a very interesting point. I didn't think of it like that. I've not had anyone express that. But like I said, many people still just don't know people other than just from a distance. They don't know them from a personal perspective, which is unlike us. We know each other from a personal perspective, but that's still to this day very rare. I hate to say it's still very rare. And that was my concern. So I want people to learn about things so they have a better understanding, and maybe that'll make it better for everybody in that sense. And like you said, school is the center of this discussion is around schooling And I think it's interesting that someone like you and your friend were able to take the risk, okay, and try to make a difference in the way that you could do it at that time. But my thing is now, what do you see, because we're going to wind down, what do you see things that young people can do now? What do you think that would occur now if that were the case? Would people do what you and your friend did?
So, I teach at Western Connecticut State University, which is a pretty diverse university. And I still, in my classroom, insist that people work on in-class exercise tasks
Mhm.
with people that I assign them to. So I randomly assigned students to work in groups of 2 or 3, just so that they won't stick with the same people that they went to high school with, just so that they will, one of the important things from higher education, which is meeting and working with people who have different perspectives and different backgrounds. I do that because I still think it's a real problem that we grow up in silos and we stay in silos, um and I guess especially since cell phones, a lot of students, especially at Western Connecticut State University, I think they go through the whole time they're there with the friends they had in high school.
That's right. That's right.
And
That's true.
breaking down those silos, I think, is still really important.
Good point. It's an excellent point. Thank you for sharing that. I think people need to know about that because that happens in other cities and other colleges as well. Just still, there's still people still just hang out with the people they didn't know from high school, and that's it. And that's the limitation that they put on top for the whole time that they're in college. So I think the idea of being able to have them have access and connect with other people that they may not have known prior to coming to high school, coming from high school, would make the difference as well.
Having said that, I do recall that just a few minutes ago, I also said that people need to have a safe place where to be with people that they've chosen. And I don't think that those are inconsistent things for me to believe. I don't think that you can go out of your comfort zone if you don't have a comfort zone to begin with. I think you need both.
Well, fortunately for me, I had a really safe home, so that helped tremendously. It made a huge difference. I don't think I would have survived or thrived beyond that if I did not have a safe space.
Yeah.
Okay, but the other thing I want to share is that even attending the school, there were friends that I met at the school that we supported each other. We did not know each other prior to attend the school, but we supported each other once we were there.
Mhm.
I think that can occur too. So I think the fact that making the attempt to go something that may be difficult, it's not always a bad thing. It's something you need to think about, but do it in a sense that you're cautious and you're aware. Being aware is so important. But you said, like, as a matter of fact, some children in certain neighborhoods, even today, going to school is a safe space for them because you know what happens in their homes.
Yeah.
So I think that's very important. And I think that's something else to be considered also, other than just the academic aspect, but also the social aspect as well. Okay. So Robin, any final thoughts for the audience in terms of what you think may be happening moving forward in our world, in our country, and in Connecticut? What are your thoughts? Any final thoughts?
Well, just put me on the spot here.
You know me. I'm like, okay, I want to just put closure, but I want to hear your perspective. So I'm gonna put my closure at all times. But anyway, what do you think? Any thoughts?
I have to have hope. I have to have hope that, we're going to move forward and connect more and be more tolerant and embrace each other's backgrounds more. But that's a deliberate stance. Like, it doesn't feel very hopeful.
Well, no, because it's
Day-to-day
all
basis.
it's about our relationship. That's us. So just describe our relationship. So that says a lot to the audience. Like if you have that same sense and we're already friends, that says a lot right there. Okay. So that's why I asked you to come on because I figured you just be just you. And thank you for being you. And thank you for being my friend. For those of you who don't know, now you know. Okay. She just said it very succinctly as to why we're friends. Thank you, Robin, for just being here today, talking about your background and your experiences and sharing that with the audience. And I look forward to seeing you soon in person. soon so we can collaborate and get together and spend some time together in our friendships. So everyone, thank you again for here's another episode of the Silk Stocking Sisters podcast. And we look forward to seeing you the next time. Have a great day, everybody. Bye now.